So you want to be a better homemaker and you're not quite sure how to get there. I'm here to help. My name's Samantha and I've been a homemaker for 13 years. And if you have found this video through a desperate Google search of how do I manage my home better, or how do I know how to clean better, or how on earth do I become a better homemaker, welcome, and you're in good company. A lot of women find themselves in the position of getting married, having kids, and then beginning to stay at home. But they don't necessarily have a history or a foundation in actual homemaking. So I want to help everyone get their sea legs underneath them, so to speak, because if not, you can get quite discouraged quite fast staying at home. So I'm going to make this a series, and each video is going to focus on a different skill set that you're going to need to be a successful homemaker. This is taken from not only my experience, but countless years talking to other women who also stay at home. First, to create a foundation for where this conversation is going to start from, let's break a few myths. The first one is this, that a cleaning schedule equals homemaking. And this is just not true. Now, having a cleaning schedule or a rotation or whatever you want to call it, that is a skill set within homemaking. But you can be the best housekeeper in the world and still not be a great homemaker. You can have a very tidy and clean house and still feel unfulfilled or like you're not achieving anything in your home, because the two things are not all encompassing of each other. So while this video actually is going to be talking about how to set up a cleaning rotation, understand that that's one skill set. That's not everything there is to being a homemaker. The second myth that I want to break is that being a homemaker looks any one particular way, because I think social media has led us to believe a few different maybe visions of what homemaking is. The first one is that if you stay at home, you are a hot mess, and that that's okay, and that we should embrace that life is chaos and a hot mess all the time. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and donated it. I do not suggest that. While yes, our lives can be a hot mess sometimes for various reasons, I don't suggest looking at that as a picture of reality as far as how you want your home to run, right? We're striving for more than hot mess here. The second option seems to be aesthetic, cottagecore, baking sourdough bread everyday homemaker. That's also not generally the reality for everyone. Now, it might be that you know someone who really does bake sourdough bread every single day, wears dresses all the time, and has an idyllic existence. But that's not going to be the reality for most people, nor is that going to be a functional home for everyone. Now, I do wear mostly dresses. I have a garden. I like to bake bread. So maybe some people would see me as being able to fit that stereotype. But it's a stereotype for a reason. Like, we have examples of it, but that's not actually reality. And then I've noticed a third subculture or genre popping up on social media lately that actually has me quite concerned. And that's what I'm going to affectionately call the spoiled housewife genre. And it seems to be kind of like a breakaway from the aesthetic homemaker genre. And it's one that I think is even more unhealthy. So basically, you find these videos or posts, and it's like a woman who is provided for by her husband, right? Which I ascribe to. I think that's a very good family dynamic. But she's provided for, but the thing that he's providing is actually a lot of time for selfishness. So she's constantly bragging about buying a new handbag, getting her nails done, having her lashes done, having time for this or that. And it seems that the entire purpose of showing this existence is showing like how spoiled this person is. And I think that's going to set up a lot of young women for some major disappointment. Either one, they're going to be looking for that quote unquote high value man to provide that. They're not going to find one, and then they're going to end up alone when they didn't want to be, or they're going to get married thinking that that's what they were going to end up having, and finding out that actually being at home, it requires a lot of sacrifice. I think that we need to have a conversation about where like a healthy balance is between all of these things and what your home life is actually probably going to look closer to. Then the third thing that we need to talk about is that this isn't going to be a change that happens overnight. Our culture has indoctrinated us with this very specific version of what accomplishment and progress looks like. And in the sphere of homemaking, achievement and progress does not generally look like what the world tells us it should look like. So this is going to require some time of like reprogramming your brain out of that fast-paced, instant gratification world and learning how to see homemaking as a vocation and as a job that's more than a job. This is a way of living your life. It's a lifestyle. And I don't mean a lifestyle as in aesthetic Instagram accounts. I mean a lifestyle as in like this is something that you put your effort into that shapes what your life is like. Now that we have that foundation for our discussion in this series, let's start with the first skill set. And that is going to be a cleaning schedule or a cleaning rotation. This is the easiest part of homemaking, even though it's the task that we seem to spend the most repetitive time on. This is something that's going to get monotonous, right? Like doing dishes just is monotonous. They have to be done every day and somebody's got to do it. And if you're at home all the time, that person should probably be you. And this is something that gets me into trouble sometimes, is that I think that if you're someone who stays home full time, you should do the majority of the housework. Now, this is not to say that your children can't also be assigned chores, but this does mean that the general housekeeping task set falls to you. You are in the home the most. You know what needs to be done, so do it. It really is that simple. But how we get those tasks done in an efficient way can take a little bit of practice. So let's talk about how I break it down for my house. Now, I have tried at least a dozen different cleaning rotations and systems out there, and guess what? In my opinion, they all sucked as far as it was concerned for my home and myself. Why? Because those people don't live in my house. They don't live with my kids. They don't live with in my neighborhood. They don't live with my seasonal changes. They don't have the same age kids that I do. There are a lot of things that go into how a cleaning rotation should work for you, and generally speaking, the people on the internet that make cleaning schedules don't have those same circumstances, so don't expect their system to fit you perfectly. Now, I do think there is a place for looking at a few systems and just kind of seeing the variance between them and the similarities so that you can get an idea of how other people do things. But I don't suggest marrying yourself to any one particular system. With all that said, this is how my system works, and I do think that it's extremely flexible and is just kind of like a good base building block for creating your system off of. And it breaks down into daily, weekly, and monthly or seasonal tasks. And here's where you're going to start, is the daily task list. So I want you to look at your home. I want you to look at the areas of your home that you think need daily attention. Now, I'm going to use the example of the kitchen all the way through this because it's an area that in everybody's home needs daily attention unless you're eating all of your meals out of the house, okay? Your kitchen's going to need to be cleaned daily. Within your kitchen, what tasks need to be done daily? Because if you just put on your list, clean the kitchen every day, that is not specific enough. I need you to break it down for yourself. So get out pen and paper and let's break it down. Your dishwasher is going to need to be emptied every day. When are you going to do that? Are you the type of person that wants to load your dishwasher through the whole day? So like you eat breakfast, you load the dishes, you eat lunch, you load the dishes, you eat dinner, you load the dishes. Is that what you want to do? Or like I do you want to wait till the end of the day to load everything? That's the personal preference that I have. So it doesn't mean for me that I need to empty the dishwasher at the beginning of the day because I'm not loading it until the end of the day. And I already know that. I don't need to have the goal of emptying it by the time I cook breakfast, right? It's not the first thing I'm doing when I get up. but maybe for you, it needs to be the first thing that you do. So I want you to write that down, just a general timeline, like before breakfast or before lunch. I don't mean put down like an actual time, like 11 a.m., but put down generally when it's going to happen. Try it for a week, and if it doesn't work, change it. It really is that simple. Don't feel tied down to the first choice that you make. Then I want you to look at the next task that needs to be done daily. So wiping down your counters. Okay, do you need to move every single thing on your counter and wipe them down every day? Probably not. Do you need to focus on the area next to the stove every day? Yeah, probably. So I want you to get really specific on when those tasks are going to be done. And then just look at your other daily needs. Like, I need to vacuum every day. We have 4 animals and 3 kids. We have to vacuum every day, or it looks like a pet hair factory exploded in my house. So vacuuming every day is on my list. Generally, I will do that like right before my kids come home from school. That's when it works out for me to do it. But I don't marry myself to that specific time. If I do it in the morning, not a big deal, right? But I know that my goal is to have it done before I go pick up the kids. So look at your daily tasks. You know what needs to be done. You live in your house. I don't. Now, moving on to the next part of making a schedule, and that's your weekly rotation. Now, you are going to know when you're busiest during the week and when you have a little bit more time. So when you have more time is when I want you to put the bigger tasks, like the kitchen, or say changing the sheets, like in the bedrooms or something. So you pick a day that you are going to do those bigger areas, and then the jobs that are a little faster, put those on days when you know you have less time. So that's the general guidance I'm going to give on that. If you try this for a couple weeks and you find that the rotation isn't working for whatever reason, change around the days that you're doing things. My general rotation, which I'll put in here for you guys, involves kind of like a general tidy, bedrooms, kitchen, living spaces, bathroom, and I think another general tidy. So I literally just go check my whiteboard. So I'll have a picture of that. But I just go check my whiteboard because I don't memorize things like that very well, even though I do this schedule week after week after week. It's just not how my brain works. So you're going to have that weekly rotation. The lovely thing about having a weekly rotation is if you miss a week, say on Wednesday you had a ton of appointments and you were out of the house all day, you didn't get to clean the bathrooms. When you get around to next Wednesday, you've only missed 1 week, right? So you might have a little bit more to do, but it's not going to be like you haven't cleaned it in a whole month. So this weekly rotation is making sure that you're hitting the high points in every area of the house at least once a week. And that just keeps everything on an even keel. And then for our monthly or seasonal tasks, you're not going to write a rotation. You're just going to write a list. So I want you to make a task list of things that don't need to be done every week, but need to be done often enough. So for instance, I have on there cleaning out the fridge. I do that once a month. So I will put that into my kitchen cleaning day once a month. I don't need to write specifically, I'm going to do this on the 15th of every month. I can use my eyeballs and see when it needs to be done. I have like picking up the yard as maybe like bi-weekly it gets done during the summer. Okay, and I have the kids come out and help pick up all the toys and the things that end up all around the yard. But during the winter, that task obviously isn't being done because it's frozen outside where I live. So that's why I have a task list where I can just pull from as needed, and that gives me a ton of flexibility and freedom, and that works really, really well for me. And that's one thing that I found in other systems. They wanted to be super specific about when those things got done, and I just don't need that level of specificity. You might need that, but my guess is you're going to be just fine figuring out when these tasks on the list need to be done by using your eyeballs and your common sense. Now, just some closing final thoughts on cleaning systems as a whole. And my one watchword here is going to be flexibility. Give yourself some grace and some flexibility that this is going to change over time. If you move to a new home, if you have another child, if you suddenly have a health issue pop up, you're going to have to adjust. And because you've set up a system that has flexibility kind of built in, it's going to be a lot easier to do that because you're not using something that is so set in stone and regimented. And as time goes on, you're going to be able to drop some of your lists. Like, I don't have a daily task list anymore. I just know what needs to be done daily in my head and I just get on with it. I do still keep my weekly rotation because, as mentioned, I have no memory for what I'm supposed to do day to day in my rotation, even though I've been doing it for a really long time. It's just not how my brain works, and that's okay. And then I do keep my task list kind of on the side of my fridge just because it's a good reminder, and then I know that things aren't going to get overlooked. Then I also want to say something to you if you are sitting in a house full of chaos right now. Maybe you have accumulated too much stuff. This is just something that happens. Your house is only so big, and eventually you fill it with enough stuff that no matter how much cleaning you do, there's always a level of chaos. And if that's you, if you feel that way, if you're like, I clean and it just never feels tidy, you have too much stuff. That's the problem. So what I need you to do is, instead of doing your just typical cleaning on that rotation, I want you to use those rotation days in your week and take a couple of weeks where you're just decluttering, okay? So if it's a bedroom day on your rotation list, I want you to pick one bedroom and declutter it. Get rid of stuff. Take stuff to charity. Declutter, okay? Same thing like in the kitchen. Look through. Do you have extra pots and pans that you never use? Do you have way too many cookie sheets? That sort of thing. Declutter, okay? Then you're going to be at a much better base level of not chaos that you can tidy up from, okay? Because that's what's causing the problem. If you're thinking, I tidy, I clean, and I'm just never getting anywhere, you need to go through and take out half the chaos. I'm not a Marie Kondo kind of person. I'm also not a maximalist. I'm somewhere right in the middle. I just want a certain level of sanity in my spaces, and that means not having too much stuff. So if you're feeling the chaos, take a couple weeks, declutter, and then really get back to just getting into a tidying routine. Now, my next video in this series, which I'll probably release next month, is going to be on self-discipline and time management at home. These are skills that can be really easy to let drop off the map once we're at home because nobody's really watching us, right? But they're skills that we need to keep at front and center of our mind all the time. So I'm going to talk about how to do that in the context of being at home. Sprinkled in there, I think I'm going to be releasing another sewing tutorial soon. So I'm really looking forward to that. And until then, happy homemaking, and I'll see you soon.